What's going on, everyone? I'm DW98AZ. Today we are going to be talking about women giving false witness testimony against men who haven't done anything. Reason why I'm doing this episode of the podcast, is because I'm going through something similar. Now, I can't talk a lot about it for legal reasons and for confidential reasons, because, well, I'll just leave that side to myself, because I'm not supposed to do that. In other words, this video is not directed at the person. It's directed to everyone else who are even thinking of doing the same thing. But first, I want to talk about the Me Too movement. I think the Me Too movement started with good intentions in mind. But the problem is, just because it started with good intentions does not mean that there are bad people who can infiltrate the movement and turn it against American society. What do I mean by that? Well, a recent case with Donald Trump. I forgot who the plaintiff name is, but it was a defamation case, which is a civil case, not a criminal case. And to make a long story short, she lied about Donald Trump touching her inappropriately, because the evidence just did not match the plaintiff's accusations against our current president. And what happened was, because New York is so for justice, not really. Because what happened is that the legal system and the attorney general, what basically they did was, for lack of a better term, change the law so that that accusation or whatever can be on his record as something that actually happened. Which means that that court case that Donald Trump was a part of, where he was the defendant, was a complete hoax. It was a complete stinking hoax. And anyone who does not see that are either blind or they're just outright stupid. But today we're going to be talking about false witnesses. Today we're going to be talking about false witnesses. Excuse me. So let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 19. We're going to be starting at verse 15. Why? Because, number one, the Bible is the foundation of American society. Our founding fathers during the American Revolution believed that God was behind the American Revolution. During the Constitutional Convention, I'm pretty sure it was Benjamin Franklin who started the trend that we should have a prayer before convening or proceeding with the convention. Which, by the way, that was definitely a thing during the American Revolution, when the Second Continental Congress was the leading government during the American Revolution. In other words, God is behind the foundation of this country. The Christian religion, as they would say it, is the reason why we have this blessed country. Now, someone will say, but we have the First Amendment. Yeah, the First Amendment basically says that the federal government is not allowed to set up a state church. But they're also not allowed to stop the religious practices of Christians. So Deuteronomy 19, starting at verse 15. One witness shall not rise against a man concerning any iniquity, that's evil, or any sin that he commits. In other words, it's not suffice for one person to just testify against somebody concerning certain things. That's not suffice. The ESV actually says it's not suffice. By the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses the matter shall be established. If a false witness rises against any man to testify against him of wrongdoing, then both men in the controversy shall stand before the Lord, before the priests and the judges who serve in those days. So, what does that mean? Well, that basically means that if there's a controversy out there, they're going to stand before God, the priests, because remember, Israel was, at least from my point of view, a theocratic republic. A theocracy based on law. And the judges who serve in those days, that basically means, okay, you're going to go there, you're going to talk about the case, you're going to hear one side, you're going to hear the other side, and it's going to be up to the judges and the priests. Which, by the way, the priests have the law. Some people don't know this, but the priests were sort of like your Congress, who have law, who talk about law, who establish law, except the difference between this Congress and the Congress in the Old Testament is that the law was inspired, which means that it's true, and it was specifically made for the children of Israel. And the judges shall make careful inquiry. And indeed, if the witness is a false witness, who has testified falsely against his brother, then you shall do to him as he thought to have done to his brother. So you shall put away the evil from among you. In other words, if you're a judge out there, be careful what you do with a case. I don't care if it's a civil case or if it's a criminal case. If you do not make careful inquiry, then you shouldn't be a judge. You should step down. Because if you're just there to make money and to not uphold law, to not uphold justice, then you don't deserve to be on that bench. You don't deserve it. And you should have never run to be judge in the first place. And those who remain shall hear and fear. And hereafter they shall not again commit such evil among you. Your eye shall not pity. Life shall be for life. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. In other words, whoever, and I'll just talk about my case a bit, if my ex-wife is found to be a liar, then she should get what she expected me to get. If she wants me to go to jail for a certain amount of time, she should go to jail for that certain amount of time. If she wants me to pay her money because she's bad at finances, which, by the way, I know that because I've been married to her for 3 years, then she should do that for me. But that's as far as I'll talk about my case. Anyone who lies in a court of law and expects something should have that expected something on them if their testimony is false. If you don't like that, then don't make the accusation. The Bible says in Romans 13 that if you're scared to do evil, don't, or if you're scared of the authorities, don't commit evil. The reason why I'm pausing is not for effect. I'm just trying to find something else to say. I guess what I can say is that people who bear false witness should pay for what they expected the other person to pay. Even the death penalty, if for example, someone goes to law, let's just say this. If a woman goes to law to accuse a man of rape, which in one state or another is the death penalty, and yes, I'm going there, then she should face the death penalty if she is found to be false. And you know what? I'll just say this. The law is supposed to be blind. Alright? The law is supposed to be blind. What do I mean by that? Other than considering mental health, the law should not at all discriminate anyone on the basis of gender, race, religion, creed, ideology, period. It should be impartial. But we live in a society today where partiality is the norm. What is partiality? Showing favoritism to one person because they are a certain kind of thing that you like. That should be nowhere in our justice system. And if the judges think like that, like I said before, they do not deserve the position and they should have not run for the position in the blessed first place. And if there's any judge that's like that, they should step down because there are certain consequences to favoritism. And let me tell you something, they're not pretty. Look at the French Revolution, for example. The reason why I'm comparing the French Revolution to modern day is that we live in a more polarized society. When it was just the American Revolution, we at least got together and we talked things through. But the French Revolution was a complete contrast to the American Revolution because of the basis of favoritism. Men and women died during the French Revolution. The Reign of Terror. How about we talk about the Reign of Terror that happened in France? When Maximilian Robespierre was literally not just the leader of the Jacobin Party, I'm not sure if he was the founder, but he was definitely the leader of the Jacobin Party. He was also the leader of the French Republic. And what the bastard did, excuse my language, was that he instituted the Reign of Terror, which means if you talk anything against the revolution, which, by the way, we have certain laws in this country where if you talk against the country in the military, you would immediately get, excuse me, arrested for espionage. Yeah, the Espionage Act that's in or that was instituted in 1917 is still in the books. But if you talk against the revolution in France during the French Revolution, you would be going through a kangaroo court, basically, and you would have your head chopped off. Now, the amount of people that died, innocent people that died, all for speaking against the revolution, it's not in the millions, but it's in the tens of thousands. And seeing that here in America absolutely scares the crap out of me. It scares the crap out of me. The reason why it scares the crap out of me is that I know as an American how American society is. I see the writing on the wall every time. And that's coming from someone who has severe ADHD and autism spectrum 1, which, by the way, does not give me a good strength of intelligence. But from studying history and connecting it, making connections to modernity, I can see the writing on the wall. Oh, but DW, my actual name's Dakota Washington. For those of you who are waiting for a certain Christmas album to come out, which I don't know what to name it yet, some of the songs I've actually written and you'll see my name. Because I give credit to myself when I write stuff, like music. Not only that, but I also give credit to those whose music that I have converted into, well, orchestral music, symphony music, experimental music, but anyway. Dakota Washington, American society is so above that. You sure about that? You sure about that? Because humanity has a long history of revolting against one another because someone decided to show favoritism. And not only that, those revolutions were pretty bloody affairs. I don't think pretty should be an adjective. They were bloody affairs. And some of the crazy people that live in this country, such as my former in laws, and that's as far as I'll go talking about them, who talk about, oh, I'm going to kill you, or if you do this, you're dead. I'm not worried about the moderates. I'm worried about those people because it's people like that who formed the Jacobin Party and led the Reign of Terror in France during the French Revolution. I'm more worried about that group of people than I am worried about moderates, such as myself, my grandmother, Vlogging Through History, who I listen to a lot, which I don't know if I can give a shout out, but Vlogging Through History, I guess I can give you a shout out with my small channel. I'm not worried about people like that. I'm worried about people like my in-laws who threaten death because violence is what they know. Violence is what they know. It's in their actions, which I actually suffered from them personally. I was assaulted by one of them. So if it's in their actions and it's in their words, it's in their thoughts. And if they get any power, they're going to enact on them. But that's all I gotta say concerning women who use the justice system to get their own way. They should suffer what they want those men to suffer. They should suffer high anxiety like those men suffered from high anxiety. They should get the death penalty if they're seeking the death penalty on someone. Why? Because they simply don't like them. And for the simple fact, just to talk about my case a little bit more, holding them to account on their actions. Why? Because the whole reason why I'm going through what I'm going through is because I basically told my wife and her family, her maternal family, to have some moral courage, humility. In other words, holding them to account. And apparently I got in trouble for that. But that's as far as I'll go concerning that case, as I've said that plenty of times, and yet I'll probably go back to that, but the thing is, I'm trying to end the video. Those women should suffer what those men suffered. Women who bear false witness, they should have their names doxed. They should have everything that they wanted to come to the men that they've accused, to the women that they accuse. Oh yeah, women are probably more harsh against each other than they are against men. And I'm probably not saying that from anecdotal experience, anecdotal evidence, which is from my personal experience. I think there's a statistic out there that says that women on women crime, and I'll just say that, seems to be more prevalent when they get the law involved to shut up someone on the basis that doesn't exist. So yeah, for those of you who haven't done so already, subscribe and hit the bell to get more content. Donate to my channel at $DW98AZ. That, of course, is my Cash App. Also, like, share, and comment so we can get the algorithm going. I'll see you guys in the next one.